So let us start with the prayer. Vande Gurum, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to all. We will start the program with a 1-minute video. So Happy New Year. So this is our first program. Unfortunately, usually the participant numbers usually goes up to 400 to 800. I don't know, maybe New Year holiday mood, people have not joined. Let me invite our moderator. Before I invite Dr. Jayaraman, I would like to mention our dearest Prema ma'am. I believe some 3-4 months back, she told me about Lifology and about Mr. Praveen. And she introduced these two great people to us. So yesterday, I believe I sent a request to ma'am, I know you're busy today with your family, so you should at least come and show your face for 5 minutes. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you for accepting it. Please, I think, yeah.
My honor. Thank you so much. I mean, I apologize to CARE family for not being very active. But as I have always been saying to Sreesan sir, that CARE is very close to my heart, and I'm going to see that CARE is placed on the highest pedestal in the globe. And for that, what we need is good associations with people who make a terrible mark in individual life and, of course, the society. And I was so happy to meet Mr. Praveen. I think he's more of a brother to me now, but the conversations that we have had, especially in the on terms of career guidance, the whole concept was very much only focused about what next engineering medicine. But I think Lifology has brought a beautiful dimension to the entire package of what career guidance, and besides that, the skill development, the psychometrics test. I think he's the right person to talk, but I'm so honored and privileged to say thank you to both Shah Jahan sir and Sreesan sir for, making this platform. I have also just now pushed in messages to my teachers to please, wherever they are, log in. And because we are going to start this too in our school in the coming week. So we are looking forward to understanding more. And I'm sure all educators will be immensely benefit by this package that we have to include if we want to have our students future ready. Thank you so much, Sreesan sir. Thank you. I'm honored.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. And let me, introduce our mentor and moderator, Jayaraman sir. As everybody knows, he is a senior and retired nuclear scientist and mentor in the STEM. And, he is recently co-authored a book about parenting with Professor S. Shivadas. So I think, everybody should, go through it. Along with him, today we have two resource persons. Mr. Praveen is a co-founder and CEO of Lifology. And Mr. Rahul is a very famous figure in the national media as well. And he is a director, education Lifology. We are so privileged and happy, like the New Year day, we were able to introduce two great people who can, educate us, enlighten us about the career options. When this proposal came to us, we were a little doubtful which platform we should add, because every Saturday we used to address each and every subject. And Dr. Jayaraman sir, he suggested, why can't we put that under our science and technology? Because now the career guidance, apart from the conventional type, let us go to the technical side. So let us listen from these two resource persons today. I invite Dr. A.P. Jayaraman to officially start the program. Sir, please.
Thank you, Dr. Sreesan, for inviting me to this great event, and also for accepting the idea that we should have this career guidance under the platform of science, technology, and innovation, because India has got a science policy, India has got a technology policy, and 2020, India has introduced an STI, Science, Technology, Innovation Policy, preparing the people on strong STEM background. So that's the reason why I got in here. And I have very selfish, personalized inventory into this. I myself was a product of career guidance, which I got from my college professors. I tried my best at home. Charity begins at home. I started with my daughter, put her for an engineering in one of the famous engineering colleges in Mumbai. And later, in the next generation, where the intelligence level or IQ is one log cycle ahead, that's working with my grandsons. So the deficiencies and insufficiencies in parenting, I have neutralized in grandparenting. So I have a grandparent and my first grandson to a specific destination in engineering at the Imperial College London, very close to London School of Economics, where both the speakers today are coming from, and also to my very young grandson through an IB system, currently to the early decision of the Brown University. So I mentioned this to prove my credentials of working in the field. If I can't do it in my family, I can't do it for others. And I have been doing it for the scientific community for the last 40 years in the Baba Atomic Research Center, giving guidance to the children, grandchildren. So that's my background. That's my reason or raison d'etre for being here. And I have two great experts in this field who have dedicated their professional experience specifically on the field. Praveen with a law background and from Cardiff University and from the London School of Economics, and Rahul from Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, inaugurated and started by my mentor, Dr. Sarabhai, and also from the London School of Economics. I think London School of Economics is the common denominator from this. So let me begin this small conversation from my side, and that begins, let me begin with Praveen. I have listened to your TED Talks, and you have been defining lifology as a science and as a philosophy. I am interested in lifology as a science. would you please share with us what is the fundamental cardinal hypothesis which drives lifology as a science?
Oh, thank you very much, sir. So first of all, Dr. Sreesan, Dr. Jayaraman, and all of the principals, I would say an exciting opportunity we are getting because of two reasons. Number one, it's great to be in the company of great people like all of you. Second, this is my first program in the new year. So I believe this will be a good start. I think Rahul's second program because he was taking an interview for our GeoTV today morning. So, and one more reason which is making me so happy to talk on this platform is, some of the very familiar names are here. So I have been interacting with Pramod sir for minimum last, I think, 3+ years. And this is one of the first schools in the UAE who adopted Lifology as a part of their system. And we had a great launch and all last year as well. So a great mentor always. And since the beginning of conversation I had with her, so she is so encouraging and she's kind of like, so pushing me to go forward, saying that you have to go long way forward, so move faster. So it's like so great that we are getting into the company of the right people and getting an opportunity to talk to you all. So yes, the topic mostly is about guidance beyond Google today. And let me take the question which Jayaraman sir asked. So where exactly Lifology is placing ourselves? So I would like to say like this. So Lifology is the core mission of Lifology is lead children to a meaningful future where they enjoy happiness, financial security, fulfillment, and purpose. In total, a meaningful life. And we firmly believe if a person is spending around 8 hours a day in studies, later on in professional activities, putting all together in professional spectrum, if a person is spending around 8 hours a day, that means cumulatively if a person is living in this world for on an average of 80 years, a person would be spending around 27 years in career. So when a person is spending around 27 years in career, if that particular person is not enjoying happiness, financial security, fulfillment, and purpose from that particular domain of career, they may not be able to extrapolate the same to the rest of the life. So we firmly believe it is so important to make sure. So we have to, make a person reach the right place in career. And for that, what is required? So we were analyzing various studies and various analysis about success in career. And we could identify the right person can get into the right place when there is an alignment of 3 P's in place, 3 P's. And the first P is passion of that person. So the person should be passionate enough to do whatever they are doing in their career. Second, the particular career should be in alignment with their personality. And number 3, it is so important to make sure. So there are possibilities around themselves or opportunities around themselves to succeed in that particular career. So the science of Lifology is rooted on the points. We are trying to use the systematic practices we have, the tools, techniques, and the practices we have to ensure that we lead a person to the right career, which is a blend of his passion, personality, and the possibilities around it. And this is what exactly we are trying to do. And for this, we use around, in Lifology, we use around 3 systems. Number 1, we have an AI algorithm in place, which is trying to understand people in deep through continuous engagement with people. So number 1. Number 2, we have a set of psychometric assessments in place, which are developed by people with more than 5 decades of experience in this particular domain. And number 3, so we follow the most systematic coaching practices to understand and to take people to the right places. So through a blend of these 3 is in fact helping us to make the pyramid strong with passion, possibilities, and personality in place to lead people to the right career, whereas they enjoy happiness, financial security, fulfillment, and purpose. So this is the core principle of Lifology. And Jayaraman sir, over to you. So this is the core cardinal principle of Lifology, which we are following. And just to add one more point, when we started the activity, so I started my journey in human resource development when I was 18 years. So the day I joined Cardinal Law College to pursue my undergraduate in law. So I started doing, I started working part-time as a trainer. So I was working for various organizations as a trainer and later on as a coach and all. So then I did my MBA and started my own first company, and that was into human resource development. In the UK, across Middle East and India, I was working with various companies to set up their learning and development practices or employee development practices and coaching the leaders. So I could understand from my experience, it's like, only by leading people to the right career, we cannot take the hands off. It is so important to make sure, so their skill set should be well aligned to the career which they are into. Because when we are into some career, even though the career is right for us, if our particular skill sets are not in line with the career, we would be so stressed, tensed, and irritated. Same like, a person who is not having the right skill set to be a teacher, getting into the teaching fraternity. So the person would be like the fish out of the pond. The person may not be able to do everything in a cool manner. So Lifology is also trying to bridge the gap in the skill development spectrum and also the mindset. Because the mindset is, again, very important. It is so important to make sure we are mentally fit. So once we lead people with the pyramid or the triangle of passion, possibilities, and personality, we also try to support these people with the right orientation towards skill development and also mental well-being. So all together to make them future ready. Jaraman sir, over to you. I believe I didn't overspeak.
Yeah, thank you, Praveen, for giving us the theoretical underpinnings of Lifology. Let me just take to the next frontier. How do you validate the hypothesis that the future is deterministic and predictable, and the character trajectory we have chosen can definitely be taken to a future with unknowns and unknown unknowns?
Correct. That's a great question. So there are three things, as I told you before. So let me tell you what we have done. So number one, we have designed, so let me take the possibilities first, because there are three P's, as I was mentioning before. Number one, passion. Number two, possibilities. And number three, personality. Let me take the possibilities first. I think it was by Dr. Michael Osborne of Oxford University, published a theory in the Future of Employment report in 2013, saying 47% of jobs as of today will not exist by the mid of 2030s. So this particular Future of Employment report, co-authored by Dr. Michael Osborne, was analyzing in detail about the changes happening in the employment spectrum. But I think it was published in 2013 and around 8 years later. So now we have a lot of things to add into this. So what we are doing is we have created a proprietary algorithm in place. This particular algorithm, take the case of, or take the predictions did by Oxford University in place. Number two, search across the globe and go through, let me put it in this way. So one is the Oxford University algorithm in place. Second, this particular algorithm scrolled through the job opportunities which are being announced in internet and trying to understand the trends. Like, in which areas the opportunities are getting updated more, in which areas the opportunities are getting updated less, and in how frequency, in what frequency the particular opportunities are getting announced in internet through various job sites and various social media sites. So the Oxford University report in one place. Second, the updation of job happenings in the second place. And number three, the trends happening. Let me take an example of trends happening. So our system scrolled through the number of building permissions which are being applied every year. And we take the assumption that the more number of build, and we take a pattern of the development of the number. So what happens? The more number of building permissions are happening and the buildings are becoming larger in place, that means the future opportunities for civil engineers are more in place. We also try to understand how many IT companies are opening every day and try to map it against with, like, the number of opportunities which are coming up in IT. So number one, the Oxford University report. Number two, the number of job openings coming up in various fields and the trends of that. And number three, so the trend, the correlated trends, not only the job opportunities, the correlated trends. And number four, we take consideration of various industry reports as well. Say, for an example, the NASCOM, produce a report every year regarding IT industry. CII may be producing report regarding Indian manufacturing industry every year. So we consider these things as well. And the algorithm would try to identify the pattern of development in career based on these numbers and try to understand in which area the possibility is more for the future and in which area the possibility is less for the future. It's not it cannot, I mean, we are not relying upon human biases to take the decision or the human biases of counselors to reach out to the decision, because we firmly believe, and from our research and understanding, we could understand career guidance is a very, very, biased scenario. Because a particular career guide who is biased about certain careers, they would be having tendency to lead people to the career of their own bias. And they may be having stereotypes about certain careers, and they would be leading people based on those stereotypes solely. So we are relying totally upon the data to understand the possibilities. This is number one. And number two, the second P is the personality. So we all know that how exactly as being trained teachers, trained researchers, you all know how exactly a psychometric assessment is getting developed. So the core of every psychometric assessment is the base score it has. That means we would be assessing a person and map the person against with a base score. And normally the base score in every assessment is taken based on assumptions. But what we have done now is we identified hundreds of people working in different careers. So for example, 100 people working in artificial intelligence, 100 people working in genetics, 100 is just a number I'm saying, 100 people working as designers. And with all these people, so we have given the same assessments which we are giving now to children. So we have given the same assessments to all these people. And then based on an algorithm, we try to identify, are there any common pattern of behavior with this set of people who are working in a single career? And in around 82% of careers, we could identify a particular pattern of behavior which are peculiar for the people who are working in those careers. Say, for an example, when we identified the people who are working in the finance sector, we could see that there, if you take the case of Mbti or Mason-Briggs indicator or the Carl Gustav Jung studies, so the structured mindset, the mindset which is giving more importance to numbers, detail, structure, system, process, that is more with the finance people who are working in the field in a successful way than many other fields. So, but for the example of an architect, a person who is working as an architect, rather than this fact or rather than the structured mindset, their idea or their ability to understand the space around themselves is pretty more. And we could identify the pattern of that particular behavior. So now what happens when a student in your school, so for a good number of students from Sharjah Indian School has already attended Lifology's program, and Prema Ma'am School is going to attend. So when a student is taking up an assessment on Lifology platform, the score of the child would be getting mapped with the base score, which we could identify based on the experience we have with the professionals who are working in that particular field. And then we do the matchmaking. So what happens? Lesser the deviation, more the suitability into that particular career. And number three, the third number is about passion. So about passion, what we do, the most important point over there is passion is one of the I would say wrongly interpreted or over celebrated word. Many times infatuations or fancy thoughts towards some professions are getting widely, I would say, misinterpreted as passion. So what we do is we identified around 10 segments which makes a person passionate about something. Example, some people are very passionate to work indoor. Some people want to go outdoor if they want to be entertained. Some people want to work with people. Some people want to work with machines. So some people really want to work with jobs involving physical activities. Some people want to work more with jobs involving mental activities. Some are gross motor skills and some are fine motor skills. And based on this, we have created another system in place to help a person identify his interest based on these 10 parameters. So what happens in Lifology? Based on this 10 parameter analysis of passion and around 40 parameter analysis of personality, and on the other side the AI algorithm which is crawling across internet and going through various studies and trying to understand the possibilities. So we try to map the numbers, and based on this, in fact, we are helping children to move forward in their life. So that, like in one word, so or in one sentence, we are giving more importance to the system general. generated stuff than a subjective involvement from our side. And based on this particular report, the trained counselors can go through and they can support they can add value to children based on their social circumstances. So this is exactly how we are trying to reduce the errors, reduce the biases, and make sure the prediction we are doing for the system is more or less accurate in nature. Jaraman sir, hope I answered.
Thank you, Praveen, for that hyperfine structure analysis, for the pattern recognition, and also for the for your analysis on MBTI. I would come back to MBTI pattern recognition and the neuroscience of that in the next round. May I request Mr. Rahul to share his perceptions of lifology as a philosophy from the management perspective?
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Please keep your mic mute. Rahulji, you're yes.
If
You are still muted, Rahul. You are still muted.
hello.
Unmute yourself, please.
Just give me a minute, I'll come back.
Mr. Rahul is still unmuted.
I think he's trying
Oh,
to
yeah.
he has joined from 2 different devices. I think he's trying to.
This is the issue. Maybe sometimes it is very close by, then
If Praveen can take the question, I can take the next question. There seems to be some trouble. Let me see.
Okay.
Oh, technical glitch. Yes. Then we will. Can I come back to Praveen again?
Sure, sir, please.
Oh, fine. Yes. You were speaking about the trend analysis and the validation of the cardinal principle which you have been enunciating. Now, has there been any efforts at falsifying these predictions from the scientific perspective?
It's like 2 most important things. Number 1, we were doing a testing with similar kind of other assessments in place. Number 1, it's like, say for example, if it is MBTI or our tool on one side, we were trying to correlate with the same people who are taking MBTI scores and try to understand whether how exactly these things are matching together. And also like for an example, so 3 things to be very precise. Number 1, we were correlating all the assessments we do with similar sort of assessments which are assessing the same kind of traits. Number 1. And number 2, we were also trying to make sure we were also trying to see that we at least with 5% of people who are going through the Lifology system, we take a holistic analysis of these people in place and how the holistic analysis happens. So our expert team would be interacting with their teachers. If there's a student who is taking this, interacting with their teachers. Number 2, interacting with their parents, interact with minimum 3 of their friends, and interacting with some of the people who teach them or train them other than in academics. And based on, and we try to present our understanding about this particular person to these people around, so that we can try to correlate how exactly the system generated reports or the system generated analysis is in par with or in line with the people around or the observation of the people around. So number 1, our assessments are always been in line with or not in line with is getting correlated with standardized assessments or time tested assessments which are there in the which are there in the world. Which are there in the world for a long time. So that analysis happens. So number 2, a holistic analysis, holistic manual analysis to understand the correlation of the report with the understanding of people around is also happening. And number 3 is a time lapse, not a time lapse analysis. I can say it like, a very longitudinal study kind of a stuff. It's like, so Lifology has been doing the same kind of research for last around 8 years. but we have launched it to the market only around 3.5 years before. So what we have done is like, we have people who we interacted with around 5 or 6 years who completed their masters and started getting into jobs now. So we try to follow at least a good number of people and try to understand whether our predictions were right, or are they holds good even now, how exactly they are feeling it now. So these 3 exercises, so our chief assessment officer is Dr. Marilyn Mays, and Dr. Marilyn is a person with around 5 decades of experience in this domain, and she was leading the ACT profile development in the US team as well. So, with the leadership of Dr. Marilyn, so we have been trying to do all the 3 with a minimum of 5% of people who every year take up Lifology or go through Lifology system. So these systems are in fact trying to help us to do course corrections, trying to help us to do the needed additions, deletions, modifications on the entire system and make it more and more perfect every year. Because we firmly understand and we firmly believe we are into a responsible job. Because we are trying to tell a parent or a teacher that this guy would be very good if you can lead to this particular career. And if our prediction, and we firmly understand it may be because of the way we present the entire system and the way we built up the system and the people associated with this. So the people who go through the Lifology process trust us a lot. So that increases the responsibility. So to make sure we meet up with the responsibility, we are doing all those 3 things in a very strong manner as a due diligence system for Lifology by ourselves. So this is how exactly, Jayaraman sir, we are trying to do this system.
Thank you, Praveen, for that exposition. And I have 2 small questions, riders on this. A correlation in science is not a causation. And in science, we have a large measure of correlations with high confidence level, not being able to convert into a causal mechanism, aspect 1. So I would like to know 2 views from you. 1, your view of correlation as a strength of confidence. And 2, the neurobiological basis for present understanding of Mbti and its criticism in career selection.
Okay, let me take the first one first, the correlation part. So I firmly believe the correlation, how Lifology sees correlation at this point of time. So we, in the entire system, consider correlation on 3 domains. Number 1, we try to correlate a student's score with the scores of the people who are already successful in a particular career. And we are also, and not only in career, in terms of skill development, in terms of emotional well-being, and also in terms of learning abilities. So on all these 3, in one angle, we are trying to correlate the people's behavior with the successful people's behavior. A kind of a benchmarking happens. And for us so far, we could see that it works pretty well, number 1. And number 2, the second point where exactly correlation happens is we take the correlation of Lifology's instruments with the world famous other instruments in place. So in that as well, so in the academic field of credibility testing of an equipment or an instrument, we see that that is adding much more value to Lifology. So that is the second point where exactly we are trying to take the correlation in Lifology. The third area where we are trying to take correlation in Lifology is the correlation of the scores which are predicted by Lifology versus or trying to correlate with the opinions which are generated through discussions with people around. So on all these kind of 3 fronts, so even though it is not purist in a very purist point of view, may not be so scientific in nature, in a pragmatic point of view, which we have been following to support children, so it is so useful for ourselves. That is my understanding on your first question. And now let me take the second question regarding MBTI. So MBTI, or the Carl Gustav Jung's Jungian architecture, is mostly studying about the core behavior of a person, which is the core behavior which is there in a person. Maybe we can say that genetically or since beginning, or which is shaped up in the mind during the early ages in life. So whether it is nature or nurture, so MBTI is talking more about the core behavior and its structure inside the person. And Lifology want to see it in a way that only based on the core behavior, we may not be able to lead a person to a right career. It is so important to add a couple of other things in place. So what we are doing is, even though I was mentioning MBTI before, if you see the Lifology process, Lifology is predicting the future of a child based on 3 different parameters. And MBTI, not MBTI, but Jungian archetypes is just a part of that. Second, we also take to consider the William Moulton Marston's DISC model. So, and based on that, William Marston's DISC model, and based on that, we have designed an instrument called Mbti, or Marston's type indicator. And number three, we also consider Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence. So based on all these three things, so why the three things? Number one, the Jungian archetypes is constructing the core behavior of a person. But based on the environment which he is experiencing around himself, there may be changes and there may be tweakings of his behavior, which can be identified only if we follow William Moulton Marston's MTI or Marston's type indicator, which he believes so much that the person is the protector of the environment. So we are using that particular instrument as well. And number three, it is so important in the learning perspective to make use of Howard Gardner's instrument as well. So what exactly is happening in lifology? A person who is experiencing lifology would be going through all these three streams, and only after completing the three streams, so they can get, they get a detailed profiling of themselves. So based on various percentage and weightage, we do consider all the three things inside lifology. So if I take the questions head on like this, so MBTI, we firmly believe just as MBTI or Jungian archetypes, it may not be the right idea to lead a person to the right career. We need to support it with multiple other aspects. And because of that understanding, we are using MTI, and that is Marston type indicator, and multiple intelligence concepts in place.
Thank you for that brilliant analysis. You have mentioned about an octagon method or 8 features as the work in progress as far as lifology is concerned. You have also mentioned the 5 mindsets of Cardinal for this. Would you find it easier to predict the trajectory of career of an international baccalaureate student who is already exposed to Cardinal's philosophy, easier to have your predictive value with respect to other systems of education in the country?
Number one, so we, in fact, let's take the case of the IB in place. So IB is a wonderful system which I admire a lot. So I believe that's a question you asked, right? In correlation with IB and the rest. And my son is a student of IB syllabus in place. So I have high regards about that particular curriculum. And we also have done a systematic analysis, because our tool has been used by people from around 52 different countries and 8 different curriculum over the last 3 years' time. So we have done, even though we didn't publish anything, so even we have done a good analysis regarding the cross-curricular or the cross-curriculum approach towards our tools and towards our assessments. And we could identify that the student in IB who was already introduced to all the 8 different, or even including the existential intelligence, the 9th one of the Howard Gardner principle, even though they are getting exposed to all this kind of stuff, we could identify that we can take a deep dive into their mind and try to take the right sense out of it. And as like any other curriculum, so far we are successful in measuring or identifying the persons in the deeper sense and multitudes of that persons as well. So far we didn't find any challenge or toughness to identify an IB against a CBSE or ICSE or an Mbti or a Canadian or an American curriculum or a British national curriculum in place.
As a derivative of this, to take the one step, would it be easier to predict the placement in the science and technology field or in the humanities and social sciences field? And I want to ask a phenomenological question. We find a large number of engineering students, undergraduate, brilliant engineers, whose trajectory at the engineering college will show they will go for an engineering career. We find them a catastrophic switch at the end of the career into an entirely different prediction. How will you account for this phenomenological catastrophe?
I think the biggest problem when we do with this, both where it is science or where it is humanities, the biggest problem is, let me approach this particular question through a different angle, and I will come back to you, specifically. The angle which I want to expose at first is like, we always talk about leading people to the right career, and we always believe analyzing the personality of the child through the Jungian archetypes or MBTI or multiple intelligence, and then predicting a career chart and asking the person to go through that particular career would be the right solution in terms of career guidance. But what I understand is the biggest problem in career guidance is not this. The biggest problem in career guidance is our limited information cognitive bias. So that means we are only exposed to a limited number of careers around ourselves. And which are those careers? Those careers are those celebrated careers which we can see in front of us. So for an example, if we take the case of science and technology, sir was talking about engineering. So most of the colleges which are celebrated or doing advertisements or mass level promotion are nowadays from the engineering colleges. And the engineers as a professional is so evident in front of a student. That means there are big companies, there are big brands like Infosys or TCS or like, Cognizant. So the child in an 8th grade or a 9th grade, they have something in engineering which they can directly relate with. They see all these top brands, they see the advertisements, and they know that these mass people around himself are working in these companies or in this particular spectrum of career. So they really want to go to these careers because of that particular understanding they have. So similar like in humanities, if you take the case of humanities, so how many people would be knowing the nuances of humanities and understanding about the various tracks where they can explore their future? So if we ask a humanities student about what they want to be, they would be maximum saying that I want to be a social scientist or I want to be a historian. So that's it, nothing more, nothing less. So same in the case of science and technology, the awareness of the vista of opportunities which they can navigate towards is extremely less. So I firmly believe the confusion or the biggest problem or challenge which we face when we are trying to predict the trajectory of the child in the science career or humanities career, the biggest problem is their lack of awareness about the opportunities around. So what happens? Even if you push a person or even if you orient a person to go to a specific career, maybe example say genomics or example astrobiology, or another example is like, a specific area of physics or a photonics. So these people may not be, may not get excitement to go to these careers because of their lack of awareness about what is happening over there. So, so take your question specific. The toughness or the challenge to predict the trajectory is the lack of awareness or the limited information bias within the child. So let me add one more point to that, how exactly we are trying to work on that. Even though we have these assessments and everything system in place, so what we encourage the school to do is to take students through a proper future education curriculum. When I say future education curriculum, when the student is in 7th grade, they should be exposed to a minimum of 30 opportunities around themselves, and add another 30 when they are into the 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade. So you can ensure that when the child is reaching the 11th grade, where exactly they have to think seriously about their university admissions, or 10th grade, where they have to seriously think about their 11th or 12th derivations. So they would be having informed understanding about what is exactly happening in the science and technology field, what is exactly happening in the, I would say, the humanities field or in the commerce field, so that after that, so we always advocate that once you give this particular career understanding or the scenario understanding for a student, and then use the instrument and map the child to go to a particular level, so they would be more than interested to go forward, and their clarity regarding the track forward can be more well emphasized to the person. So to make the entire thing which I was explaining this detail in 2 statements. Number 1, the biggest challenge we see in predicting the trajectory is the limited information bias of the child. Number 2, to crack the same, we believe it is so important to make sure we do the education first and then assessment second. So the tools which we have to use should be I would say preceded by a proper understanding which we are taking them towards or taking them across various opportunities around. So that is what exactly we do. And just one more point, specifically the science and technology field, which is in fact going through massive level of changes nowadays. Even if you ask a person who is working in the technology field where exactly the future of robotics will be, they would be like, they're like clueless. So they say that it is just an evolving field. You ask a genomic scientist, even though the genome technologies are there in place for much number of years in play, or even decades now. So even in terms of science, I understand genomics or genome studies is only in its nascent stage. So even the top experts, so for an example, we were hosting Dr. Jennifer Weissman from NASA a couple of months back. for interacting with our children who are into, the lifology students who want to get into the space science field. And I was asked, I think Rahul was hosting the discussion, or our colleague Lana was hosting the discussion, I believe. One question which came to Jennifer Weissman is like, where exactly the space science and technology is moving forward. And it is so interesting to listen from her, like, so space technology is something which is what you see now is just the tip of the iceberg. And, the more and more is yet to come. And the drastic changes are also happening in the same field. And when it is getting privatized and when private players are coming in place, it should be getting dramatically developed in future. So in all this kind of dramatic changes or high profile changes happening in the field of science and technology is another challenge we face to fix the trajectory very clear. And we are trying to balance that only by doing closely watching each of the industries, trying to understand the changes, use our artificial intelligence algorithm, which I was telling before, which is analyzing or crawling through the internet to see the changes and mapping it against with the possibilities part to make sure we are not making mistakes in the entire process of predicting a person's future. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Praveen. Would you like to mention about the critical variable parents? We have been mentioning about the schools, but I have seen parents and grandparents have been single critical variables in career formation and career guidance. And there are also experts in metropolis where they will say to a designated university for a designated course, I will prepare on 4 years' time. I know I have several consultants around in Mumbai who will say that, but I still feel that parents have a single critical variable. And I think somewhere in your talk, you have mentioned about wooing and winning the parents on the trajectory selection line. Would you comment on that?
Sure, sir. It's like, that's one of the favorite areas of mine. So I would be so happy to comment on that. And so I was so, I would say before going to the answer, so I think you're on your profile, I could see that you present yourself not as what you are, but as what you become for your grandparents. Grandchildren. So that is for the first time, I think a person is presenting his profile in such a way. And it is so, I'm so honored to see such a profile because, Dr. Shibu Naray is a professor in University of Derby, and she is leading the guidance department of University of Derby, and she is one of the academic council members to Lifology. So she and her colleague did a research in the UK, not in India, in the UK. And the research was try to identify the role of parents in deciding the career of children. And in the UK, they could identify quantitatively that 76% of children turn to parents when they take important decisions regarding their higher education. And this is contrary to the public notion that the new generation is relying more upon their peer pressure or internet or the people around themselves or friends to take decisions on career. Normally, we always believe that the new generation is not listening to their parents, but listening more to their friends or internet or the movies or the advertisements around. But a quantitative analysis did by the University of Derby, I think in 2019 or 18, found that 76% of children in the UK turn to parents when they take the most important decisions regarding their career. And I believe when I extend this particular thing to the eastern part of the world, in India as well as in the GCC, this particular 76% should go up. So we in Lifology firmly believe parents are the critical, not only one of, the critical group of people who has the major role in the way the children's careers are getting shaped up. And it is, we take the quantitative analysis or study did by Derby University as a supporting statement for the assessment or for the assumption we have at this point of time. So what we do in our enter, so Lifology has two ends. One is a child guidance system. Second is a parent guidance system. So we ensure that when a school is being part of Lifology ecosystem, so we ensure that the parents of the school is also being a part of the process, and they also go through the entire process we have. So Lifology application also had two gateways. One is to entry for parents, second entry for children. Because let me take the case of a real example. So after having a detailed analysis with a child. So if we try to identify this particular person can be an actuary in future, and to be an actuary would be a great career for this person. and we start talking with the parent or the child go. So at the school, the school counselor who is using Lifology system would be talking to the child and say the child that, why can't you be an actuary in future? The child go back to the parent and say that, mom or dad, I had a wonderful session with my school counselor using an internationally certified tool. And the particular counselor told me that I can be an actuary, which is a lucrative career in future, whereas my personality, passion, and possibilities are in line with. So I want to go for this particular career. And naturally, the parent would say that, but it is absolutely fine, but I have a different plan for you. So why the different plan? It is because how many parents in India or how many parents around would know what exactly an actuary is, what exactly an actuary is doing, what is the possibility or the career trajectory of an actuary. So only less number of people would be aware of that. So the parents may not be encouraging the child to go there. And ultimately, they are the payers. So they have to decide the payment, and they have to take the critical decision regarding the course or university or the payment or the country the child is going to study. So we firmly believe to make the guidance ecosystem or the guidance thing proper and stable, it is so important to add the critical variable parent. And one more point. So currently, if we take the case of career literature in India, the career literature in India is very amateur and in a very nascent stage. So almost every career theories we are using in India or the Asian countries are being, are come up from the US or from the UK or Australia or off late from Canada. And it may be because of the associations like National Career Development Association in the US or Career Development Institute in the UK or Australian Career Development Association are so strong. And there are top universities in these countries which are having exclusive departments for career education. I don't think that any university in India has a specific department which is focusing on guidance studies, which is running a master's, postmasters, and PhD program for guidance, like what many of the UK universities have. So when we take the UK or US universities are always trying to see that student is an independent entity, which is much detached from the parents, so that through continuous conversation and analysis of the child, we would be able to lead the right guy to the right place. And unfortunately, a system like India is also taking the same thing in place, and we are only addressing children many a times. So two problems there. Number one, in a culture like India, which is more, if we take the Great Hofstede analysis, which come up around 60 years back based on the IBM employee studies. So India is a country where power distance is very high. When I say power distance is very high, the power distance between the parent and the child is very high. If my memory is not wrong, so in India, the power distance score is around 63, whereas in the UK, it is around 23, and in US, the score is around 16. So we cannot take the guidance systems in a country with less power distance and directly apply or squarely apply it in a country with high power distance. So that wouldn't work. That is why even though career guidance as a system is in place for more number of years, we may not be able to find more number of students who are beneficiaries of the system, because even after schools run multiple sessions of career guidance, they would be just persuading the dreams and interest of their parents, because that particular critical variable is not well included in the process. So we need to have more studies based on the Eastern realities. That is number one. And number two, another reality is the Western world is increasingly trying to understand they are missing out the critical variable parent. That is why a university like University of Derby has conducted a research specifically to identify the role of parents and the decision of careers of children. So the Western world is increasingly trying to understand that they are missing out the critical variable parent. So at least it is a high time for India to make sure we are not missing out that particular critical variable, and we are having our own systems in place and our own policies in place to make sure we lead the career analysis in a proper format. And let me tell you just one more thing. In the US, there is a National Career Development Association. In the UK, there is Career Development Institute. They are the custodian of career policies in the UK. In the UK, there is a Career Development Association in Australia. But India or Asian countries, we don't have a specific career development system in place. We can say that we have India Career Development Association, which is an offshoot of Asia Pacific Career Development Association, which itself is an offshoot of National Career Development Association. There is nothing which is independently existing in Asian countries. So I think only if there is an association like that, an association not like a political association or a lobbying association, but an academic association in place, along with good research centers regarding careers and building up the Eastern philosophies and principles regarding career, we would be able to make sure we are leading our children to the right places. Over to you.
Thank you for that analysis. I would like to know that by 2020, we'll be having the PISA test being conducted in India for the first time. So we will know the physiology and anatomy of a 14-year-old child of this country. Now, assuming an ideal 14-year-old child Indian standard, by PISA standard, would you like to hazard the first 10 careers you would like to recommend to the parents of those PISA students?
I haven't got the question, sir. It would be great if you can.
India is going in for PISA test, and we will know in next year the standard Indian intellect of that. Now, to a parent of that PISA child, what would be an inventory of the first 10 trajectories we would recommend based on our current understanding of the situation?
Sir,
that is hazarding a guess, but I'm tempting you to do that.
No, I understand. So I think so what we have done is we have classified the entire careers into around 52 various career families. When I say 52 various career families, we follow normally 3 documents or 3 analysis to reach out to these 50 to 51 various career families. Number 1, the International Labor Organization's career division. Second, the ONET career division in the US. And number 3, the career family analysis by National Skill Development Corporation or NSDC in India. So we are following all the 3, and also the NVQF. So we are following all the 3 plus the National Vocational Skill Qualification Framework in India to make sure specifically for India, to make sure that we classify the career families into around 51. And we could see that from our experience, from an Indian point of view, most of the students who are taking the assessment are getting mapped to in and around 20 to 23 career families, out of the 51. And the 20 to 23 career families, which most of the students are getting mapped to, mostly are from either from the technology or from the science or from the medicine background on one way, and less from the liberal arts background, but to an extent from the commerce background as well. So if I just put it in this way, because if we see that every career can be placed into 3 larger baskets. 1 is into science and technology, 2nd is into commerce, and 3rd is into humanities and liberal arts, even though both are slightly different. So we could see that in an Indian point of view, so this particular priority is applied in the way which our career families are getting mapped. Science and technology on the top, followed by the commerce and management, and followed by the humanities and liberal arts. And some of the sore liberal arts areas, for an example, the music areas or the drama areas. So these are very less aligned to people. And we firmly believe that, as I told you before, we are assessing 3 variables of a person. 1 is the core behavior. 2nd is based on Mbti, the acquired behavior, and 3rd, the multiple intelligence analysis. It may be because of the Indian systems and practices, the acquired behavior of a person may be more in line with the science and technology, followed by commerce, and then only the liberal arts in place. Whereas the same instrument, which is applied when we applied the same in the US or in 3 other European countries, and also Europeans who are living in the GCC, we could see that it is slightly different from the way which Indian students are approaching this entire stuff. So this is what exactly our understanding based on the current numbers we have. So we want to get more clarity regarding that when the PISA is there in place.
Thank you for that exposition. And I would like you to explain to us a little more in detail about the 8 features of lifology which you are mentioning. Is Rahul?
Yeah, Rahul is there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Rahul, sir, I think he's there now.
Am I audible?
Am I audible to you?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
you are audible, sir. You are
Oh,
audible.
yeah. So our technical glitch is dissolved.
Yeah.
I would like to hear
I,
from
I,
you.
I have been listening to you bowling continuous bouncers to Praveen and Praveen.
No, these are atomic collisions at the kinetic energy levels only. What is important for me to understand the veteran practitioners, because there is such a big difference between practice and theory. I would like to hear from you the philosophical underpinnings, because lifology has been presented both as a science and as a philosophy, or a natural philosophy. From the management perspective, I would like to hear your views, your considered paradigms on lifology as a natural philosophy, a beyond extension from the physics and metaphysics of science.
First of all, apologies for the earlier technical glitch. I was trying to log in from two. I'm in Delhi. That's the reason why as many of you may know, many things are broken down and closed out here. So thank you. And I was hearing to my good friend Praveen beautifully explaining, and they were asking, since we are both from London School of Economics, that's how we met, and we also envisioned this. And let me share that experience to you. That really made me believe in this idea that Praveen initially articulated in a very deep manner. I was 14 when I lost my father. My father was working in Delhi at that point of time. He was the senior manager of one bank. So after him passing away, my mother was confused. What should I learn next? What should I study next? So I might be around 13 or 14. And after that, no, I was clueless regarding what to study. So my mother naturally assumed, since my father was good with numbers and he was working in a bank, economics is a good subject for me. That's how I joined economics. And with due respect to all the economists and the beautiful subject of economics, which was not cut out for me, after almost studying 3 years, and still now, the only thing I remember is Adam Smith was the father of economics. I have very less clue and idea regarding what else is it. I know 15 years down the line, when we are taking the lifology test and the assessment, the most interesting thing that came as the top career choice, or one of the top career choice of me, was being a lawyer. And and then I look back at my life and realized, even when Dr. Sreesan Gopinath was introducing me, he was introducing me saying that he is a part of debates. He is a part of, I had the great privilege to be in channels like BBC or Al Jazeera or New York Times, be a part of their debates. So naturally, law should have been my option. But my mother, with all the best intentions, made me join for economics. And then I went to London School of Economics. Had I joined psychology, had I joined law, my life and career would have been entirely different. Maybe the entire trajectory of my life would have been different. And right now, after realizing, after doing the very good test designed by our good friend Rahul J. Nair, with the guidance of Praveen and our technical team, I joined LLB right now. So some years back, I went and joined LLB. I went and joined in the evening batch. So the philosophical in-depth paradigm is a personal experience to me too, because had my mother, with all the good intentions, chose a different path for me, I could have gone to a better or much deeper, much profounder trajectory. I never get to choose, or below 18 years, even after 18 years, many of our students don't get to choose what they learn. So the decisions you take by the age of 14, 15, 16, and 17 are extremely critical, and the college decision, the course you are going to study are going to be very critical. And more often than not, it is an irreversible decision in life. And it's a common experience in India that at least 4 to 5 years, people lose out opting for the wrong course, wrong career, wrong college. Imagine 5 years of a lifetime, we are losing out, opting for a wrong college, wrong course, and it's an everyday experience for us. People who are experts like Jaraman sir or Pramod Mahajan sir or Sreesan ji would be able to connect to many people who will say that I have lost here, I have dropped out the course. So understanding one's own uniqueness, individuality is the core aspect we need to guide. And if being a student of philosophy, I can't help philosophizing. So I'll just take a philosophical answer for that too. Around 300 to 350 years back, there was John Locke, who is taught elaborately in B.Ed course and psychology courses, who believed people are born something like this white paper. John Locke used to call it tabula rasa. John Locke believed that we are all born like this white paper, and it is our experience, environment, and education that defined us. But with the growth of genetics and psychology, we have understood and we have begun to realize there is an inherent individuality, there is an inherent uniqueness of a person that needs to be discovered. People in the past century, like George Bernard Shaw, used to believe individuality and uniqueness is crafted, created by our experience or by our action. But in the modern term, we realize it is more of an inherent predisposition along with the experience education of a person that defines the person. I believe there comes a very important aspect of lifology, assessment, understanding, analysis of an individual, and then building on those aspects and going beyond it, understanding our limitations and going beyond it. So I believe this personalization is spreading across all the fields, not only in education. The personalization is there in education, in the healthcare industry, in the diets you follow, in the exercise patterns you follow. That's the reason why it's often said one man's food is another man's poison. So one man's a particular skill set may not be suitable for another person, and one man's trajectory may not be suitable for another person. So I believe this idea of personalized guidance that Lifology is putting forward will be a revolutionary change that education world over needs to adapt and adopt and guide our children in a much more personalized way in the future.
Thank you, Rahul, for the philosophical underpinnings for lifeology. We have been listening to the critical role or the single critical variability, I would call it, of parents in fabricating the lifestyle, or I wouldn't say lifestyle, the life trajectory of the students. Of course, now grandparents too. What would be the definitive mechanisms which we can bring in to influence the parent community, because the parent community is also a bit inflated in their ego with their own professions. So how do we reach out to them? Otherwise, if we don't reach out to them, we'll miss out.
I mean, that's the core. This is a space
so what are the operational strategy which you would be employing?
I believe this is the space where, I keep on even quoting Praveen Parameswar outside, where he says parents need that particular space of guidance, whereas parent is the decision maker. Many a times, they will say that we will leave it to the children. They will fashionably say children should find their own future. But at the end of the day, if you look at a teenager's life, whether it be taking core decisions from the age of 14 to 19 to what to study or where to study, parents are the most critical factor. There is the space for parental guidance or parental education and parental awareness. That's the reason why I believe many of you might have referred to Lifology app too. That's the reason why it is positioned also to the parent. Because at the end of the day, even though the student undergoes the experience, it's the parent who design it. It's the parent who, more often than not, it's the parent who is under the peer pressure of his own colleagues. We usually talk about the peer pressure to the students, to the children. But more often than not, we can see parents being influenced by their peer pressure, saying that, no, my friend's son got here. My friend's daughter got there. Why are you here? So this kind of attitude is of their parents. So parenting education is one of the most important aspects we have to institutionally inculcate in our system. That's the reason why in app psychometrics, that personalization angle should be there. And with due respect to our parents, see, it is very natural for a parent to push their desires to their children. See, I have a 4-year-old boy, my wife, Deepa, even though she doesn't understand cricket, she really loves Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli and the cricket thing. She wants my 4-year-old, right now he's going to be 5, his name is Yag, to become a cricketer, and she's pushing her to play cricket at this age. See, it is natural for any parent to do that, but maybe his talent is something else. In the younger ages, it is okay. But when you are critically in your teenage, the parent should understand, assess, diagnose, and realize that there are something. And the greatest philosophical challenge, let me be very open and blunt about it, the greatest philosophical challenge is a wrong romantic notion that anyone can do anything and become anything in the world. See, it sounds great. It sounds great in a motivational speech. It sounds good when somebody is talking about it loud from a stage. It sounds beautiful that anyone can become anything and try anything in the world. But see, our core competencies are there. See, my mother was a singer. This is again a real life experience. I'm quoting my mother, whose name is Mallika Mudri, because this is a real life experience I had. She studied singing for around 21 years. She even had some kacheris with people like Yeshudas. So after marriage, maybe my father didn't like it, but she couldn't continue with singing. So she made me study singing for almost 3 years. And after 3 years, I'm a tone deaf person. I don't even understand the basics of tone. I don't understand the way the tones fluctuate. So there is no point in pushing a person like me to learn singing, but I should have gone for something else. Then, things like YMCA happened to me. I was the youth wing secretary of Young Men Christian Association, and my public speaking, my debating skills developed. Thankfully for me, it was a great changing point in my life. So parents should be first able to identify their skill set of the children. They should leave the ego that they know everything about the child and they are the ultimate deciders of what children should do. Yes, they have a huge right. They should have the right. But along with that, understanding the child in his or her uniqueness, accepting, being a partner for us or her career, life choices making should be the way ahead. And I believe schools, principals, especially all these doyens of the education field who have assembled here, they have a huge role in guiding the parents to empower their children in a better manner.
I'm very happy to note that there is a higher superstition or almost a fashionable nonsense to say that anybody can achieve anything. That's all right to deliver from a public platform. But when it comes to ground realities of matching, Praveen was mentioning the rigorous matching, one-to-one correspondence required, you find that that becomes a typical fashionable nonsense to speak. But the two significant stakeholders in Lifology are the parents and the schools. Are they compatible or are there conflict of interest between the parents and the school administration with respect to their common goal? Because parents are not always so welcome to the principal's role.
I believe Praveen will be the best person to answer, but if I can just take one answer from that, I really like the Jayaraman sir's usage, calling it a superstition. It's a fashionable nonsense, it's a superstition. And many of our teachers don't gather courage enough to say that this is a superstition. They fall for the idea that, they go with the parents saying that, yeah, for example, even the child might be telling his interest is something, his interest is to a particular topic. The parent will automatically assume and say, after some time, you will also start liking it. These kind of attitude, the student may have identified his interest. The student may have identified what is called in management, the core competence. Student may have identified, but the parent will say, so it is like this. So we usually quote the example of Sachin Tendulkar and say Sachin's father was a very famous novelist, a Marathi novelist who everyone respected. Had Sachin's father forced him to take books instead of bats, his life would have been entirely different. But right now books are being written about Sachin because he opted for the right thing. So I believe that understanding of parents and the earlier generations' fanciful superstition should be subtly clarified. And as a person who connects to parents, teachers, and a person who mentors them, Praveen would be the right person to point out how better there can be a synergizing between parents and schools so that they can be stakeholders in the future of the child.
Over to you, Praveen.
Yeah. Just 2 points from my side. So number one, I think the harm which the so-called motivation speakers, did for the country or the world is too much, because they over-fancified the word passion, over-fancified the concept that if you put your soul and heart into something, you would be the great in that particular domain. So not necessary at all. So there may be exceptions, but not necessary at all. So we have to be more realistic and keep our foot on the earth where we are taking very important decisions in life. So thank you very much, Jayaraman sir, for calling it as a superstition. So number two, and how the interest of parents and schools. I would say two critical points. So let me just take only as my perspective. So many people who are on the platform now, so would be having experience as a teacher or a principal, maybe, at least half of my age or even more than that. So I may not be the, right person to make a comment on that, or I'm not courageous enough to take a bold stand on that, but let me share my perspective regarding this. Number one, it's just a perspective by respecting every other perspective. Number one, so I firmly believe the schools at a point of time, so we had a very linear path of growth. Schools, undergraduation, post-graduation, and then industry. So schools, UG, PG, industry. So, or employment. This was a very linear kind of a point of view at a point of time. But in today's world, this cannot stand anymore like a linear point of view or a linear process, or it should be a cluster in place. So even when a student is inside a school studying for his basic stuff, at the same time, they should be getting exposed to the world of UG and PG happening around, and also the changes happening in the industry. So such kind of a holistic ecosystem need to be provided by schools in place. But when the schools start thinking about such kind of an ecosystem in place, so they will automatically force to include parents also more into the same. Because where exactly parents are not very much, I'm just seeing it through the lens of schools, and I will come back with the parents very soon. Okay, so the schools at this point of time is constituted as a place whereas subject studies happens, language studies happen, student attend the examinations, get passed, and then go to the undergraduate studies, and then go to the employment studies. So even without involving a parent in this entire process, schools can successfully make sure they are making a child perform well in exams. They don't really need the support of parents too much into this process. And that is one side. And on the other side, parents are super busy with their own activities and their own work. And as there is a pressing on top of them, they are also not taking the responsibility to proactively come and engage with the schools. And if I'm not wrong, many of the schools are challenging very well taking much efforts to bring parents for a PTA meeting. But even for a PTA meeting, I think if there is a 50% attendance, that is great. So many times PTA meetings are also not well attended because of two reasons. Number one, schools can sustain, schools can grow, even if parents are not involving in the process in the current format. Because the aim of the schools at this point of time, or in a traditional point of time, is to provide language understanding, and also the scientific and the science and the subject understanding, make a person pass the exam and move forward. So that even without the support of a parent, it is possible. And for the parent, as there is no pressing on top of them, they are also not becoming part of the school. And for a parent, I'm giving you, in the mind of a parent, teacher or sir or teacher, teachers, we are giving you, we are paying you. So it is your responsibility to make sure my child is future ready. That is the mindset of the parent. And this particular mindset evolves because of the linear point of view we have about student development. But if the school need to be competitive in the new world, it is so important to make sure the school is an ecosystem in place, whereas we are involving the higher education providers, the corporate providers, the researchers, everybody in the school, and make sure the school plays the role of a facilitating ecosystem, whereas the student is getting exposed to all this kind of things. At that point, so it will be so important for the school to not only invite, but pull the parents to be part of this important ecosystem and play a great role over there. And I perfectly understand it is not at all easy to make it happen, because the parents have a very negative point of view that we are paying you and it is your responsibility to make sure my child is future ready. And I firmly believe in less time the parents will realize and understand if they are not being there with the child in the ecosystem, the child wouldn't come out of the ecosystem in a flourished manner. So the schools, to be more competitive in the new age, will be forced to and will need to transform to the level of an ecosystem in place, and at the same time, which is encouraging parents more, and at the same time, parents need to realize that the particular presence in their ecosystem is wonderful and very important. And one more point I want to add on is the parental ego, which Jaraman sir also mentioned it as a very important point. If you go to Play Store or App Store and see Lifology's title, you can see that Lifology is a parent app. We call Lifology as a parent guidance app specifically. And why specifically? We want to provide guidance for both children and parent. But if we call it as a children guidance app, parents don't use it. Okay? If we call it as a children guidance app, parents don't use it. So we call it as a parent app, which children would also be motivated to be part of, because children always want to be part of something which is beyond their age. So even in our experience, when we started calling Lifology as a parent guidance app, both parents are using and children are using. But when we used to call it as a children guidance app or as teenage guidance app, only teenagers were there. So we just relabeled the entire system or repacked the entire system as parent to entertain the parental ego in place. I think it would be so important, at least during the initial years, to ensure that we are absorbing the parental ego and we are entertaining the ego with a realization that they are egoistic and they are unrealistic to an extent. So only if we accommodate all this kind of stuff within the ecosystem, we can make them also a harmonious partner to the entire process. To sum it up, 3 points. Number one, it is so important to make sure schools transform to an ecosystem where a future guidance system is happening inside the schools. Number one. And number two, it is so important for the parents to realize that they should be an active player in the ecosystem, whereas they can no more leave the responsibility of developing their children to schools alone. And number three, for that, it would be so important to absorb, accommodate, and entertain the parental ego, at least to a to a large extent. So that is why even Lifology was discussing with some of the key stakeholders of CBSE and other boards to design a system or design a program to train the teachers to talk to parents and involve them in the best manner, because we always train the teachers to talk or the school stakeholders to deal well with children, to deal well with the other stakeholders. But I think we need a better system in place to equip all of us to understand the parents and to accommodate them in the best manner. So I think we have to go a long way forward in that particular process, whereas I believe this will happen very soon sometime.
Thank you, Praveen. I think we will come to the last or the penultimate question, and we would like to do a thought experiment. The thought experiment is we have a community of teachers with us. And most of the teachers, we have our degrees, we have our postgraduate degrees, our professional qualifications, and we are in the profession. Now, if we do a thought experiment, would we be able to look at there is no sunk cost fallacy in our teaching method? Would they have selected teaching as a profession if they had taken a Lifology course, say pre-selection of this? A thought experiment, backward in time. Will all the teachers of today were to undergo a Lifology training, would they have selected teaching as a profession? Or what are the ideal characteristics for recommending under the Lifology systems to be a good teacher? I don't think we have data-driven decision can be based on that, but there can be theoretical interpretations of this. Application of Lifology to the teaching profession and predicting the quality of teachers.
The question is to me or to the
it's to both
the
of
teachers,
you.
right? Yeah.
Or perhaps you may converge or perhaps you may diverge. It doesn't matter. This is a thought experiment. Rahul, we'll start with you. Yes.
I think we'll start with Praveen.
Okay. Yes. The consensus, Praveen, back to you.
Yeah, sure. So if you take
he's the Sachin of our team. I am only the Sehwag. So we will leave it to Sachin.
But it's a team. Yes, great.
He's a combo of Sachin and Dravid.
So if you take my career in place, so I did my 10+2, I'm my 11th and 12th in science. And then I did my undergraduation for 5 years, not 3 years, 5 years in law. And when I was doing my 10+2 for science, I wanted to pursue science. So then my grandfather was a lawyer, my uncle is a lawyer, so I wanted to be a lawyer, and some of the movies around was also, kind of influenced me to be a lawyer, because I used to see that the movie actors are vociferously talking inside the court and arguing like anything and like sabotaging the opponents. So I wanted to be a heroic lawyer. So I did my law studies. And when I was doing my law studies, I really started working part-time, not because of passion, but just because of, not because of passion, but just because we wanted to get some pocket money. I started working in the training field. And then I got passionate or interested on that. And I did my master's in a very different field, not in science, not in law, but in human resource management. And when I was doing human resource management studies in Cardiff University in UK, at that point of time, I really wanted to do something in the HR field. But then my mind again shifted to the strategic management field. So I wanted to study more on strategic management, and did that in London School of Economics. And what I'm doing now is not connected much with science, not connected much with law, not connected much with, not very much connected with human resource, but something very different what I'm doing now. Okay, so I firmly believe if I had the Lifology, and this is my entire trajectory, but honestly, the qualities which I acquired from all this kind of education is becoming so beneficial for me at this point of time, because the base of science I got from school is helping me to understand the psychology or the genetics or the neurobiology of people in a deeper manner. The logical thought process which I could develop during my my LLB days is helping me to see things in a very logical point of view. The business acumen which I could get through the MBA and the global exposure which I could get from MBA is helping me much in shaping up all these things into the business format of Lifology. And also the strategic management course or the education I got from LSE is also helping me to frame the strategies in the right way. So personally, if you ask me, so even though the career decisions which I had was not intentional or not in a very sequential manner, at this point of time, I'm capitalizing the entire benefits I go through all this kind of education and scenarios. But had I taken Lifology assessment before, I might be able to shortcut, or I might be able to cut short this entire journey process. Example, 2 years of science, 5 years of law, 7 years, 1 year of masters, 8 years, another year of studies in LSE in strategic management, 9 years. And then I was running the first company for around maybe like, that was as a consultant for around 10 years. So 19 years I got before I started Lifology. So had I taken Lifology and identified that my core interest is to be an entrepreneur, so I would be taking a different career path, whereas I would be starting Lifology maybe in 10 years. So I could have, saved around 9 years in my entire career, but no regrets, because whatever I have gone through, I'm capitalizing on that learning where I am now. Over to you, sir.
That's great. That's great.
Rahul is.
Yeah. So go ahead, sir. Go ahead, please. You are about to ask something?
No.
Sir, looking back, I believe, I'm very much interested in teaching, knowing people, interacting and debating. And just like I pointed out earlier, even if I had taken the test earlier, I would have been in this academic arena, research, I like to read. But, maybe I could have saved many years orienting myself better in a deeper way. For example, rather than taking economics for my graduation, I could have gone for either philosophy, law, or psychology, more related. So once you know it, once you know your tendencies, once you know your proclivities or inclinations, you tend to go in a much more deeper manner, much more stable manner, and much more surer manner. So I believe, looking back, I always suggest, whenever I go to any space, I tell my own example to state the importance of a system like Lifology, where we can discover ourselves, we can understand the various tendencies, and this is going to be the norm of the future. I'm absolutely sure students from some years from now, this will become a normal part of our school curriculum. This will become a normal part of our school systems, because without which we won't be able to go ahead. And I would like to conclude my answer by telling one more personal experience regarding teaching and teachers. Once, teachers, our conventional teachers, when we all were in school, teachers were looked upon as the source of information, or rather the only source of information. I had a very interesting experience when I was studying in 7th standard, which I usually share with when I go to sessions. So I went to my English teacher and asked her, which is the lengthiest word in English. So
and hold on.
Yeah.
Just on a very lighter note, I was just thinking why Rahul is not making this.
Yes.
This is one of his favorite experience, which he shared because he's so convinced about what he's going to share with all of you now.
And I believe every teacher will be immensely positively benefited from it. So I went and asked my English teacher when I was in 7th or 8th, which is the lengthiest word in English. And as you know, with great respect to teacher community, most of the teachers at that point of time never used to admit that they don't know. So the teacher gave me a very cold kind of a stare look and asked me, Rahul, is it in the syllabus regarding the lengthiest English word? I said, no, ma'am. Then she asked me, then what is the necessity of studying? Don't ask unnecessary questions. And why don't you go back to studies? Was the response I got at that point of time. Now, when I saw Srisanji putting careers beyond Google, this is one thing I remembered, because in the age of Google, it is very easy. If we want to know which is the lengthiest word in English, it is very easy. You just have to go to Google and search. But say 20, 25 years back, I needed to almost search 2 weeks to find the lengthiest word in English. It's a word called nihilifilification. But one interesting experience happened to me too. So I went and shared this experience in a school saying that the lengthiest word is nihilifilification and honorificabili tudini tatibus. One non-standard student stood up and said, "Sir, I know I have a disagreement." I said, "What?" So she said, "The lopa dote mako sela koga kronia," the Greek word starting with 183 letters. It is the lengthiest word in every language. So do you know that? So I was perplexed and bowled over because I have never even heard of the word. So our students are getting updated in a very big way through Google, through knowledge systems. So being a teacher in the modern age is more about being a mentor, philosopher, and a guide who can uplift new generations in a meaningful way. And I think had I had such teachers or systems like Lifology, I would have achieved many more things in lesser years compared to what we are. So career accelerator, Praveen would like to call it, career navigator, I would like to call it, whichever way we can call. In one word, it is like a Google map. Google's one of the greatest gifts is a Google map. Whichever place you go to, you can use the Google map. I believe teachers, Lifology, and the entire system should be like that Google map, life map, career map, whichever term, that map which will point the way, perhaps handhold, walk along with us to a great, bright future. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul. That takes me back to my college days. My grandfather was a criminal lawyer. He was also a professor of English. He told me the floxinosis, nihilifilification, and honorificativeness. And also he asked me to combine technical terms, and you can make it as long as you want if you know the method of doing that. And when I graduated in chemistry in 1964, this is a fossilized story which I want to share with you in Lifology. My grandfather told me, your ambition is not to become a lawyer like me, nor anything like that. You must become a class 1 gazetted officer at the youngest age possible. So with a chemistry in BSc gold medal, you go for English MA, your MA, and go for IELTS and become a class 1 gazetted officer. That was the ambition of a grandfather. Then at that time, Homi Baba said there is a training school in atomic energy establishment where you join in 1 year, you can become a class 1 gazetted officer if you pass all the stringent examinations. The choice, the cruel choice was for my grandfather. Should he go to atomic energy or shall he go for English? So I went for atomic energy, thanks to the decision taken. A grandfather who is not tutored in life theology and who said his profession is not the profession I should prosecute. So that was the beginning for my choice of a career. We had a wonderful conversation, fascinating, scintillating in all aspects, touching and an exposition of different topics. And I think Lifology has established itself as solid, sober science. And its importance to the we had an intensely inspired exposition of that. And we are all convinced of its inevitability. And if you don't take advantage of this, history will say that we acted irresponsibly. So it is for the educators to take full advantage of that. And I thank the association for organizing this beautiful, lovely discussion. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Back
sir.
to Dr. Sreesan.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. I believe, one easy decision we can make it because our President, Dr. K.K. Shahjahan is here. Our Vice President, Dr. Pramod Mahajan is here. And of course, Dr. A.P. Jayaraman, our mentor. I think, sir, we should take this proposal forward, at least in India. I think, this career guidance program, I think we should take it forward to our schools because we have seen more than 18,000 principals are registered with us. So, and I had a personal, discussion with Mr. Praveen also. He said there is no investment for the schools. There is no investment for the schools and their application is free of, anybody can use it. So in another 1 or 2 weeks, we will formulate a plan. I believe, we can promote it. At least, we can educate the parents. I think Mahajan sir want to say something. Mahajan sir?
Yeah. No, I wanted to tell one thing. I am the end user, and we are using the Lifology from last 2 years, and I am in discussion with them from last 4 years. And whenever Praveen comes to UAE, the first day itself we will meet and will discuss at the length. There is no second thought about that, and definitely this program will change the shape of thought process and make the parents also futuristic. So that is my thought on that. They have very nicely quoted, Praveen nicely quoted about passion, personality, and possibilities, and Rahul about experience, environment, and education. Their psychometric batteries are foolproof. There's no second thought about that. But the thing is, now as a vice president of CEIR, if I have to speak, still there they have to plan a wider roadmap for future fit, creating future fit students for disruption like COVID-19, COVID-20, COVID-21, whatever comes, how the child, how the learner should be a future fit and what sort of counseling should be given to them. Second, how to embrace the technology instead of becoming techno addict, because some way many students are becoming techno addict nowadays because of this uses of technology and all. And the third is explore the machine instead of becoming machine. That is again a role of a lifology, to train the learners and to train the students, to inspire that spark that machines are mean to be used, not becoming yourself a machine. Then futuristic in nature, in thought process with respect to taking the risk. And finally, the futuristic trends. What is the demand of global demand and global trends? So there is a gap. I do 100% agree with Praveen as well as Jayaraman sir. Parental, rather than I use a particular word for that, parental bossing. Yeah, parental bossing is going on. Not only the parental bossing, being a principal, I have courtesy to say there is another aspect also. The teachers teach phobia and the teaching bossing, teachers bossing, that also spoil a lot about the learning process of a child. So there are two main hurdles, but thanks to the pandemic and as well as the awareness within the parents, now parents started thinking beyond that, and the schools also starting to playing a vital role. Let me cite, there are many parents come to us to take the admission, and they are coming from very five star and seven-star schools and wanted to admit their kids to our school, being the first choice school of the parent. And whenever we open the admission, many principals also do call us, sir, please do not give the admission from my school. So I always ask to the parents ki why you want to admit your child to our school or with the community school. The first answer which I used to get from them, sir, your school is a school where the students from taxi driver to CEO's kids are there. It means they understand the ethics of labor and ethics of the, there should not be any gap. Second thing they used to say, from your school, we have seen that the U Fest, you people are rocking from last 3 years, and you are the UAE champion from the last 3 4 years. What does it mean? It means parents credits for the sports, for the dance, for the singing, for the scientific activities. They are not going about only for the percentile. That change is happening, and that is a very welcome change. I always used to say that I have never produced, we have never produced the Sharjah topper or UAE topper. But it's an answer coming from the parents that you admit anyone and anywhere and anytime with supplementary holder also, but all are passing in first division. So parents started thinking from that point of view. So they are now thinking about the competencies and the progressive learning. At the same time, I if Praveen is there or Rahul is there, I wanted to know one thing, that cognitive skills and the meta skill, there is a wider gap nowadays. So how they are going to fill up or bridge that gap of cognitive skill as well as the meta skills? Are they there or they are gone?
Only I could see Mr. Rahul.
Rahul,
Praveen.
okay, some other point we'll discuss with them.
The time has also come, sir.
Yeah, come to that.
The time is exceeding now that we have
Yes,
limited.
yes.
Thank you very much for this.
Yeah.
But anyway, today is the role of the stakeholders in education that they have defined very well. And we recognize we got a lot of it means appreciation from various ends. That's in front of us. Anyhow, as you mentioned, we'll be very happy. It means recommend or that we wanted to arrange this kind of thing for the other schools. They can utilize it well.
Definitely.
Surely, sir, thank you very much for your effort. Thank you very much for your time. That's been really, it is useful for everyone. And according to the, it means it's the requirement of the time that we wanted to promote the subject. Thank you very much for your excellent presence of all three of you. Thank you.
And the next session also, please make sure that, this is a training program. It's a free training program mainly for teachers about artificial intelligence and this Intel certified program. Once again, I think Happy New Year to all of you. One of our mentor, Vasanthi Tyagarajan ma'am, Dr. Vasanthi Tyagarajan ma'am, last meeting she said 2020 was time, the era of disease, 21 recovery, 22 is prosperity. So we will all prosper. We will all meet non-virtual mode also soon. So Vande Guru, all the best. So let us meet next this thing.
And Srisan sir, so Praveen here. So I had to move out for a while because of the appreciate phase. Now it is joined from my mobile phone. So Pramod sir, great to get the question. I think that the session is getting into the conclusion. I will send you a detailed response in voice note into your mobile.
Yeah,
so
sure.
That is one thing. And second, it's a great opportunity I and Rahul got to talk to all of you and more than that, interact with all of you. And especially because I got an opportunity to face questions from Jayaraman sir, and I believe I could show justice to the time all of you spent with my answers. So thank you very much. And Srisan, it's a great opportunity you extended. And Pramod sir, Prema ma'am, and all other people who supported Lifology so far. So thank you very much for your good words and the sharing the good experiences with Lifology. Looking forward to join hands with CEIR in a more deeper manner and try to lead people to a great future. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Certainly, Praveen, CEIR and Lifology will go together. By what means and all, we will think about that, and definitely we'll go together.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you to all of you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Jayaraman sir, thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye,
you.
Jayaraman sir. Bye-bye.
Vande Guru to all. Vande Guru.